let's talk Texas. These numbers really, and I'm a numbers nerd, as you guys know. I
love
dive into the data, and it's no secret Texas had kind of fallen off Nebraska since they had joined the Big Ten, and really there hadn't been much of a geographical identity. They've tried Florida, they've tried California, they towed in Georgia, they've gone in Ohio, but nothing that's ever been just like a full commit. And now it feels like Texas is back, and I think these numbers really back it up. With 6 recruits right now in the class of 2023, this is the most members from the state of Texas Nebraska has had since joining the Big Ten in 2011, and it's the most they've signed since 2008, when they signed 8 from that year. And in 2000, so you go back and study the numbers from 2007 to 2009, Nebraska averaged 8 players from Texas per class. Guys like Rex Burkhead, you go down the line, they got a lot of great players from Texas. They're kind of trending back to that 6 to 8 kids from Texas per year.
Who else? Can you off the top? I know you hate it when
Aaron Green.
Aaron Green would have been another one.
Good one.
I mean, there were a lot of guys, the Osborne twins.
Good one.
And that was the 08 class when they came.
Lakeven Smith was
Georgia.
Oh yeah, you're right. He's from Georgia. All right. Well, anyway, yeah. In Rhule, in busting with the boys, explained why they're doing it in part, Sean. Why?
I thought it was fascinating, and this makes a lot of sense. You look at college football, the way the game has changed with conference realignment, and it changed with Nebraska. It changed for Nebraska, but it's going to change even more going forward when Texas and Oklahoma leave the Big 12 to go to the SEC. Then Cincinnati, BYU, Central Florida, those programs will join the Big 12 conference. And that really changes everything in that league now moving forward, because it's not a geographical car league around Texas, like other than obviously West Virginia. But, families in the Big 12, like, hey, we can get to all of our kids' games. It's going to change in that league now forever. So leagues like the SEC and the Big Ten, I think they've got a great opportunity, especially with the NIL and the financial resources that this league is going to offer over the other leagues.
Do you think this is a surprise? I mean, like this, we should have expected this, just given the connections Matt Rhule and the staff have in Texas, and then obviously hiring Bob Wager. I mean, that was an instant pipeline there.
Garrett McGuire,
and so this is all kind of set up for this to happen. I don't think it should be a surprise that Texas was the emphasis state for this staff that it's already become, but. Looking ahead, I mean, do you think that this is something that, this is every year you expect these types of numbers to where you're looking at
6 or more?
Or more?
I don't know about 6 or more, but it's because of what you just said. I do. I mean, these guys have connections. Here's why it makes sense. I mean, you've covered recruiting. You talk to coaches. It can lead to a more streamlined process. It can be much more efficient if you have guys in Texas that and you can call a guy at a high school and say, hey, that running back looks good. And that coach that you trust, that you've dealt with for years, says, get him, just do it. Yeah, he can play and you'll have no problems. You know how much time that can save? Mm-hmm. If you have guys that you can just go to and it's one phone call and they say, do it, just do it. Trust me. That can save a lot of time.
Well,
that's one thing we're talking about.
Well, and Jeremiah Charles and Ishmael Smith-Flores are a perfect example of that to a different level. But do you think Bob Wager doesn't know what kind of players they are?
Absolutely.
Do you think Bob Wager is going to take bad players on his first Power 5?
No, absolutely not. You're right, Sean. You're right. I mean, that he knows those kids. He knows he knows how they can play, but he also knows their personality. They're reliable. Are they reliable kids? Yeah, he knows. And by the way, I watched Ishmael Smith-Flores. I mean, you watch him, and it's almost startling that that's his first year of football. He didn't play it until a week before football of his senior year. That's when he decided to go out. He looks like a guy that's played it his whole life. I mean, he's clearly a natural athlete, and he's clearly a natural pass catcher, and he's really good with absorbing contact. I mean, it's yeah, you'd never guess he was just a basketball player.
Isn't it funny? And Robin, you're a basketball guy, but there's so many kids that want to play basketball growing up. It's fun. It's easy. You travel.
It's easier in football.
You do all these cool sponsored shoe events everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of 6'2" type kids. And then all of a sudden they say, I'm going to play football. And then they go Power 5. I mean, it's crazy.
Athletes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There's certain positions and certain body types that just translate perfectly with basketball. And then now the modern era of football. I mean, you start like way back in the day with like Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, those types. But now it's like frequent where you're seeing basketball players that, kind of tap out on that end and decide to give football a crack, and they turn out that their skill set, their athleticism fits perfectly to that sport. And I think there's more crossover than ever between basketball skills and football skills, just with the way football has kind of shifted to more, it's less of the trenches.
Basketball on grass.
Exactly. Especially with some of the modern offenses.
Yeah. So Ismael Smith Flores is a really good example because he's 6'5". Now he's 6'5". That's good. That's good in high school. He's a forward, right? 6'5" forward in college.
Nope.
Maybe not long enough now.
Dime a dozen.
Yeah. You better maybe look at football at 6'5". And he did. And I invite you to watch his film and tell me if that looks like a first-year football player. I can see what now he'll have a ways to go compared to some of the guys, but other guys have played it for a long time. But I mean, you can see the raw talent.
Well, Jeremiah Charles too. I mean, 40-inch vertical.
Oh.
4 or 5. He said he had 5 in the game that Rhule's at. I read 4 is what I heard from somebody else on the game that Rhule went to, but he's gone 47.4 in a triple jump as a junior, and he's pushed 50 in practice. He said, but I was talking to somebody affiliated with the Nebraska track program, and they said that 47.4, would get in that area would get you in contention to score points in the Big 12 or in the Big 10 in track. So he's a dynamic athlete. He wants to do track too.
Yeah.
And so you got several guys, Bryce Turner, Malachi Coleman, that are all going to take part in the track. Joshua Fleeks, Brian Munson had a great breakdown of these numbers today in his 3 and Out column on Husker Online, just with the track and what some of these guys are going to bring to the table. And Malachi Coleman ran 10.46, Jalen Lloyd 10.43, Bryce Turner 10.25, Joshua Fleeks 10.46, and then you bring in now somebody like Jeremiah Charles, who's gone 47.4 in high school in a meet in the triple jump.
Bryce Turner's going 10.25.
Yeah, he's the fastest in the country.
Oh boy, that's Palmer. That's who's that guy they just had? Trey. Yeah,
like
Trey Palmer. That's
Bryce Turner has a chance to win state Texas this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. I think he's second last year in the overall state.
Yeah, that's a guy you'd like if he can play football at all.
Well, he had decent. I mean, he did.
Yeah.
But that's the Evan Cooper kind of formula that he goes with. I mean, and Matt Rhule believes in Evan Cooper and the way that he kind of builds off those types of variables.
You could see, I mean, that Trey Palmer speed. I mean, it was really noticeable. I mean, what he was able to do against certain teams, Purdue and Iowa come to mind. I mean, I'll always remember that Whipple saying that whole game plan at Iowa was built around Palmer being able to beat them deep. Man, I mean, your whole game plan is built around beating a team like Iowa deep, which doesn't allow the deep ball. It's pretty amazing.
They prevent the deep ball as well as any team in the country more often than not.
But that's how fast that. I mean, you got a 10-2 guy. You got a couple of them. It can really be a problem.
They got a 4x1 team.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do when you break down the numbers.
Sort of exciting. But here's the thing.
Yeah, I know.
We haven't mentioned, we don't talk about it enough, by the way. They haven't gotten the big guys.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't gotten the big guys on the line. They haven't gotten them on the offensive line. We don't talk about it enough. I got to write about it.
And then finally, guys, I do want to hit on this. Trev Alberts shared on his show, Nebraska will stick with morning practices. And that's what it's not Trev Alberts, that's what the football program wants to do. Does that do anything for, I mean,
do fans care about that?
I don't know. But
I don't think so.
They don't. Yeah.
I think they maybe do a little, but.
Well, I think there was some thought
anybody.
that they were going to go back to the old style. Frost pushed for the mornings. He got him. Riley wanted the mornings. He couldn't get him. And Frost said, I'm not coming here without the mornings. And they figured it out.
Riley wanted the mornings.
Yeah. And they said, it's not feasible. And Frost said,
class-wise.
Yeah. And Frost said, well, if we can't do it, I'm not coming here. That was like a kind of a negotiable thing at that time. So they're going to stick with the morning at that, as far as what they do. And it'll be interesting to hear from Matt Rhule more about it. We don't know the spring schedule yet, but we assume they start the week of March 20th.
I got to say, Sean, I mean, I was a little surprised when Trev said that last night, that they would go. He said that times may not be exactly the same, but they're going to go morning practices.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that when Frost got here and they laid out why they moved to mornings, it made a lot of sense. Like it basically gets you on a routine. It keeps you from staying up late. I mean, it kind of focus your football right out of the gates to start the day, as opposed to going to class, eating snacks or whatever it may be, sleeping in. So I mean, it makes you start your day ready to go at 6 or 7 a.m., which I think for a lot of guys, that's a good thing.
Oh, if I was a player, that's what I'd want.
That structure is a good thing. People are like, well, how are they going to go to class? That's not a problem. You find classes that fit around your football schedule. Like that's not an issue. So for me, I mean,
that's what I'd want. I want morning.
Selfishly, I think it's great. Those nights of staying there till 7 o'clock at night, waiting for guys to come out of the locker room. Yeah, I could stay away from those forever.